Hello, this is the Inquiry Project How To, and this is one that you're working on over a period of many, many weeks. I know that you are going to receive weekly instructions on doing the different phases of the Inquiry Project, but I'm going to talk about what is turned in for this project and how it is graded. That is the purpose of this video. Okay. As far as turning in, you're going to turn in the video of you explaining and presenting your documentation panel. You know, you're like Vanna White on the game show, and you're just going to be showing and presenting what you've done. Then you're going to post phase 1 narrative summary, phase 2 narrative summary, phase 3 narrative summary, your list of children's questions to be investigated, the anticipatory web, and some close-ups of the pictures with labels that are on your documentation panel, because sometimes everything is so small when you have it on the video that I cannot read the labels, and I like to read everything that's on your panel. So that is what you're actually going to be turning into me. And this is how it's going to be graded. And I do want to explain the grading rubric. Okay. First, we're going to look at your posting of the children's questions. There's the exceeds, meets. To meet, you're going to have 10 child-generated questions that are researchable, depicting what children want to know. And by researchable, I mean questions that make sense, questions that you can look up, questions you can investigate, and so on and so forth. The anticipatory web. In order to meet expectations, you're going to have 4 or more possible content areas. Remember, the content areas are math, language arts, science, social studies, PE, art, music, so on and so forth. You're going to indicate which of the Oklahoma academic standards that you're meeting with each of those content areas. You're going to indicate 2 or more possible experiences for each content area, which means you're going to, if you have math as a content area, then 2 or more math activities that they're going to do that are investigative and that will meet the Oklahoma academic standards criteria. And then you're going to indicate possible resources on that anticipatory web as well, such as visiting experts or field sites. And as far as the exceeds expectations, you know, the difference between exceeds and meets is always in the specific details and examples. That's the only difference. If you have a very detailed web with lots of information on it, then of course that succeeds. If it's just kind of a basic web with just, you know, the basic info, then it'll meet expectations. Okay. And you can read the approaching. You know, by approaching, you're leaving off some stuff. And then again, on phase 1, you're going to have 2 photos of children engaged in phase 1 activities. Those activities can be things like asking questions, you know, on what they want to know about the topic, or they can be the children engaged in activities even before you have a topic. You know, if you're bringing in a bunch of stuff to kind of generate a little interest on a topic, you know, you can take a picture of the children engaged in those activities. And in order to get your exceeds, you're going to have 3 or more photos. And then there's the narrative summary. The narrative summary is really the meat of this particular piece, because you're going to discuss the children's age and grade, relevant background information, things like, are there children that need special adaptations? Do you have to bring in special things for them? Things like that. What strategies were used to identify the topic? You may not have used any. You may have walked in and the children may have been all excited about, I don't know, rainbows. and that's the topic they want. That's great, no problem. But sometimes it's not that easy in life, and you have to, kind of bring in a few items, kind of maybe lead them in a certain direction to come up with a good topic. So talk about that. And then what strategies did you have to use to support knowledge, skills, and dispositions? Well, knowledge would be, actually bringing in items for them to look at, for them to manipulate. The skills piece is where you're going to have to teach them specific skills, perhaps in order to move on into the investigation phase, such as teaching children how to maybe measure using non-standard measurements, maybe have them measure using their personal shoe, or maybe have them measure using erasers, or maybe you might teach them how to tally. And then what is the children's current level of engagement and understanding of the topic? I mean, were you able to engage at least half the kids in the class? If you are, that's a good thing, because you're never going to have everyone in the class buying into a particular topic. And as far as dispositions, are they excited? Are they curious? Are they being helpful to one another? Are they sharing with one another when they're using the equipment you brought in? What dispositions do you see? And then, are there any cultural influences pertaining to the topic? There may not be. But sometimes you have children from a particular culture, and the rest of the class is super interested in where they come from and what kind of food they eat, what kind of games they play, and things like that. All good. Again, it may or may not be there, but at least let me know you thought about it. Only difference between meets and exceeds is multiple specific details and examples. Okay, remember the narrative is a one-page, single-spaced. So this is a very condensed piece of information. Then we go into phase 2. And phase 2 is where you really look at the content knowledge. This is the investigative piece. You're going to link relevant content knowledge with inquiry tools to create challenging and meaningful curriculum in 4 content areas. Well, what does that really mean? What it means is when I'm looking at the picture and when I'm reading your narrative for phase 2, you're telling me with the labels under the pictures and with what you write about in the narrative, how you address the content areas. If you're labeling science as a content area, then what did you do for scientific exploration? If you're labeling language arts, then what are the children doing that would go along with learning that language arts skill? If you're labeling it music, what are the children doing, again, that would meet that content area requirement? Okay, so that's how you're going to do it. And again, you're going to, in order to exceed expectations, multiple specific details and examples. Active learning is documented in phase 2. And that means you're taking photos of children depicting hands-on inquiry. And each photo is labeled with an explanation of the science process or content learning taking place. And phase 2's module is very clear on what these science processes are and how to go about labeling them. Please don't label pictures. The kids really had a lot of fun doing blah, blah, blah. I'm sure they're having fun, but right now I just want to know what science processes were taken care of, or what math processes or language arts, content learning. And again, if for your exceeds expectations, it's going to be detailed, lots of examples. Okay. Then you're going to have more learning documented by children's representations of what they're learning. The pictures were just the investigations part. Now you have the children creating something. Again, we talk a lot about that in the module that talks about phase 2. But when I'm grading it, I am looking for representations of learning. What did the kids create that showed me they learned something? Did they write something? Did they draw something? Did they create clay figures of something? Did they create a model of something? Something. Please show me something. And if it's clay figures or something, just put them in front of the documentation panel, and that'll be great. You can talk about them when you make your video. Okay. And then the narrative summary for phase 2. Explain the content area curriculum. How did you meet that curriculum? And you know what? It's okay if you don't meet it all, because sometimes that's very difficult. But if you don't meet it all, talk about why you didn't and how maybe you could improve for the future. And then the dispositions nurtured. What dispositions were nurtured by the investigative process? And then we go on to phase 3. Phase 3 is where you tie up everything in a cute ribbon and a bow. The culminating experience. What is one thing all the children can do that kind of ties up what they've been doing? Take pictures of what they've done, put a written description so it's very obvious this was our culminating experience. And there's a lot of discussion of that in the module that deals with phase 3. And then phase 3's narrative summary would include exactly, just the description of the culminating experience. And give me a summary reflection on the entire project. How did the project feel to you? This is a curriculum methodology that is quite popular in a lot of places. And that's why we ask you to actually do it. The rest of the curricula that we talk about this semester, we're just going to read about and then discuss. But this one is really a great one to implement and see how it feels to you. So when you do your summary reflection on the project, let me know how you feel about it. And give me some idea of what maybe you would have liked to have done differently. Again, talk about what dispositions were nurtured, and you can tell that's really important. And your conclusions. What are your conclusions at the end of this? And then we have the mechanics. What this is basically all the labels that you have on your documentation panel need to be either commercially printed, you can buy the lettering, or just print it on your computer. Nothing handwritten. It just doesn't look professional. And it should be formatted as directed. And I think I'm pretty clear on the directions each week. And no grammar and spelling errors, please. That just doesn't look very professional either. Because when teachers do these documentation panels for a project, they will put them out. This is a great way to advertise to parents what the kids are doing in your classroom and what they're learning and how they're learning by being actively engaged. So use this as a teaching tool for the parents in your classroom. All right. That's all I have to say about the grading rubric. If you have any questions about this, please feel free to ask. I'm always available for a Zoom. Have a great day. Bye-bye.